What's happening, people? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope you're keeping well. It's Burnley versus Tottenham this weekend. Key game for both teams. Burnley 8 points adrift at the time of recording. They desperately need wins. Couple of draws last time out. They need to do better. And for Tottenham, yes, pressure reliever in what was a free hit. Ultimately, it felt like anyway for the manager and the players against Dortmund, and we delivered unexpectedly, but still a lot of expectation going into this game. And of course, not getting a result will mean, I think, the final straw for Thomas Frank. But if you do, please like and subscribe. Let's get straight into it then. So first, initially, my thoughts on Burnley. Like I said briefly there, a couple of draws last time out. Man United, I thought they played well and got that draw. Man United 32, 33 shots. So Burnley backs against the walls and went to Anfield as well. Burnley and got a result. In particular recently, but throughout the season so far, Scott Parker, they've been very defensive, a lot of goal line clearance. What's the Man United game as an example of that? Your body's on the line. I think that's fight, showing commitment, but they have been very defensive. And some will say it feels like they're waiting for the inevitable. That's what Burnley fans will tell you. Having spoken to a few, and that, of course, is concerning from their part. You've just got to think in this game, does it suit Tottenham for Burnley to sit back? I don't think so, because, where's our attacking quality? Where's our creative quality? A lot of creative players, Madison, Bergval, Kulusevski out injured. Great to have Dominic Solanke back, I think, is generally speaking clinical and a hard worker. I think very key when you want to break down someone. Both of those attributes, in particular, clean kind of finishing. But it'll be tough because every game for Burnley is a final from now to the end of the year, and they have to win. Draws are good, and drawing to Man United, Liverpool's good, and it tells you two things: one, that Burnley have been competitive, unlike the three teams last year, to the point where a point against Liverpool and United are seen as not a hugely significant result. That shows how far they've come. The okay season they have in. But also, if you flip that on the head and you're more negative, it just shows that the state they're in, they've left it too late. They left it far too long before they got their acting gear. And now even these draws should usually be good results and no longer. So all tough game for Tottenham. A lot of players out injured as well. No real team update. Of course, we know Lucas Bergwij's out for 2 to 3 months. Hopefully, Pap Sarr is back and available. This would be my team. Sarr, I plan to play him for this game, but because he had an illness, I don't want to take any risk. And imagine him coming back and he's not 100% fit for whatever reason, and he gets a long-term injury again, which is regular in the Spurs camp. But getting injuries for a long period of time, we cannot afford that. So I'd rather play it safe. Even if there's very minimal risk, not take the risk. Vicario in goal. Just read out my team and talk you through it. Spence right back, Doggy left back, Romero and Van der Ven as the centre backs, Gallagher and Gray in midfield. It's the 2, and then Xavi Simons in the 10, Tell on the left, Odegaard on the right, and Solanke up top. So I talked to you about my main talking points, which is Pedro Porro not in there. Plays a lot of games, and I think it's currently suffering from fatigue as a scapegoat amongst the fan base because of those mistakes creeping in from the fatigue. But in reality, he's still one of the best fullbacks in the league. I do honestly believe that, both sides, but in particular, one of the best right backs. I do think he is very good. I think fans as well, bigger on their hands and knees to sign him. And I think, of course, that was extreme, but I think he's been very good. And yes, of course, there is vulnerabilities and similar mistakes been made in defensive positions, but he does a lot going forward. But he's playing every game, like he did under Ange. Played every game but one, I think, this season across all competitions. Very similar situation last year, I've said there, under Postecoglou. So fatigue's got to be a factor. He worked so hard. So Carlton Slack, I think, deserves a rest in this game. With a doggy back as well, there's more license, more freedom to do so, even with all these horrendous, horrendous quantity of injuries, but also the length of injuries. Not, having the amount of players we have out, 13, 14, 15 players, I mean, that quantity of players is hugely damaging. But it wouldn't be as damaging if it was all like a week, or like from 1 to 3 weeks, they're all out. It's not. They're all like 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and some so much longer than that. And that's being kind. That's the problem. I give Porro a rest in this game. Feels harsh to take Danso out. Mr. Reliable, Mr. Dependable, really solid again against Dortmund. When does he ever, when will he ever put the foot wrong? He's been amazing, but same time, it's not fair. And say to fans, who's been exceptional this season, you can't go in the team. Danso has a very strong third centre back, the ideal third centre back. You can't get any more ideal than that. Someone that is, going to be, you would assume, happy to come in and out of the team. He's not going to be entitled in that sense, but you can always rely on him. As much as I like Romero Van der Ven, for example, who missed the Dortmund game, for use him as an example, it'd be a better one. I was like, oh no, shame no Van der Ven for Dortmund, but I trust Dan, so that wasn't worried. I wasn't worried about that. I was more worrying about the forward positions, and that's real credit to Kevin Danso in that aspect. Conor Gallagher then, not the perfect debut for him against West Ham, both result-wise and individual performance-wise, of course, with the team as well. But he'll be looking to show what he's capable of, against, again, a smaller opponent, but in a big game. And next to Archie Gray, there could be quite a nice partnership in there. And again, perhaps I don't want to take the risk. Simmons in the 10, very good performance against Dortmund. If you can keep that up as well, bring that into the league. And that's the thing. Can we bring the performance that we had against Dortmund into the Premier League? That's the thing, because it's chalk and cheese. Fifth in the Champions League table, 14th in the Premier League, and Burnley, we lose that, then we're in deep, deep trouble with potentially getting sacked into something we don't want to. And I'm talking about relegation scrap. That's coming from someone who's positive, because of the games we've got coming up: Newcastle, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City, Man United, Palace, Liverpool. All these tough games coming up means that if we don't get results in the games like this, we just make it instantly harder for ourselves. And not winning against Brentford and Sunderland and West Ham is just so damaging now as you look back. But big game for Xavi Simons. Taylor coming back into the side again. It makes sense, but it feels harsh, of course, to leave people out in that sense. But I think he's got to be done. Spence, that performance at left wing, that's the best left wing performance of the season. So again, it feels wrong not to put him there. It feels wrong, to kind of fix something that isn't broken. But I think the reality is Tell's playing well. He's got to get in that team. Oddbay as well, really impressed with him. 2 assists against Dortmund. For me, one of the contenders and man of the match. There were quite a few. The guys we spoke about, for example, is Xavi Simons, a huge contender for that as well. And Solanke up top. Again, we've got to manage his minutes still with him just coming back. So yeah, even if he can get 70 minutes, I think it'll be a real plus. And Kylan Wani, I'll terminate his loan. I don't see the value that he brings really anymore. I think it's a lack of effort as well as a lack of quality. I think for the first time we noticed that, or first time it was evident against Dortmund. That'd be my team. What would yours be? I think Frank will make 2 changes, or Frank will do 2 things differently to what I would do. He's the manager, and I fully do trust him for now, as I would with any Spurs manager, whether I like them or not. I think he will start Pedro Porro because he loves that consistency, and he'd go, it's not the right game to rest him. I think maybe Frankfurt, he might do so, or one of the bigger games. Again, not right to do so. I'd argue that do it now before we get to those bigger games, but for some reason I just don't think he will. I don't think he'll play Spence either. I think it gives Spence a little bit of a rest, because I think he'll plan to play him in lots of different positions and give him lots of minutes with the tougher games. So I think I'll be thinking behind that. So Porro, I think he'd go with personally. I think over Jed Spence. I think he'd go with Colin Wani over Solanke. I think Frank recognises that Solanke is better than Wani, but I think Frank will give the reasoning that Solanke's just come back, and he's talked about, hasn't he, about introducing players more gradually and not rushing them back as much. Well, I think it's been an example of that. I think he again knows that Solanke will offer more, and hopefully can still offer something in this game off the bench. If that is the case, I think Wani will be forced to that kind of start. Of course, Tell can play in a forward position, and if you believe the rumours, a lot of Tell's frustrations, he's not playing the striker position, so that could be an option there. Combined 11 then, because it is Burnley, no disrespect to them, I've only done 1 combined 11 compared to the usual 2. I don't think it's fair to do a fully fit one, because it would be at least 9, if not 10, if not more than that, Spurs players. So I've just done 1 out of what's currently fit and available, which means I can't pick any injured or suspended players. I'll read it out. Vicario in goal, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, and Doggy at defence. Uguchu and Gray in midfield. Then Marcus Edwards, Xavi Simons, Odegaard, and Tell up front. So 2 players representing Burnley. I mean, I spoke to a couple of Burnley fans I was doing recordings with, etc. And I think one had 9 Spurs players, one had 10 Spurs players. So I think I'm being quite kind by giving Burnley a couple of players, because they only gave them, on average, a couple of fans I asked, I think it was 1. There might even been 1 Burnley player each. So again, I was trying to be kind of balanced. So backline picks itself. Walco started the season well. Really good signing. Has fallen off a little bit recently. I think the game's catching up with him. Understandable at his age. Again, maybe a rest would make sense. But at the same time, Carl Walker not playing for Burnley, and the situation they're in doesn't feel right either. So I don't know, Walker, how much he's got left for the rest of the season. Depracker I like. He's had 1 game, I think, where he was at fault, or just a poor performance, bad day at the office, which is of course excusable for anybody, even away from football. But I do think Vicario is not, because Vicario's not consistent and he's not world class. But I think Vicario, I'm just going to go with him. I think it's tight. I must admit it's tight, but that's what I'll go with. Ugushi, I really like. I think he's a good player and has to be in this team. And Archie Gray as well, of course. Bright future. Marcus Edwards, former Spurs player, hasn't really got going for Burnley, but had a real impact off the bench the other day with his goal, and looked really bright, looked really promising. And I think overall, in terms of quality, if they can get the most out of him, I think he is better than what we've currently got available, which is really no one on that right hand side. Because Oliver's playing there again, who'd you put on the left hand side? So those two Burnley players for me definitely do deserve to be in there. Xavi Simons still needs to show more. Florian Wirtz, for example, don't like to compare at all, but is now quite a bit ahead of him, whereas we're on a similar path. Having said that, Xavi Simons has had, I think, 3 or 4 games now. He's been superb, and the most latest, luckily, being last time out against Dortmund. And we'll go tell up front. He's voiced concerns privately, if you believe reports, of playing the striker position. And, Burnley have the likes of Fleming, Foster, but I just think it's a case of, in particular, Foster that needs 10 chances to score one. And that's reality, and Burnley can't afford that. The situation they're in, they have to be clinical, they have to take their chances. So I think Spurs striker force isn't perfect, but it's a little bit better, of course, than Burnley. You would at least hope. That's my combined 11. What would you change? Let me know in the comments below. All that's left is to give score predictions. I have to back my side or back my manager who's in the dugout for this game, regardless of my thoughts or anyone else's thoughts for the long term. If you want Frank in, Frank out, shake it all about. I said the same with Dortmund. I say again today, we've got to get behind him. We've got to want Tottenham, to win this game. It's those, if you're one of those fans thinking I want us to lose because I don't want Thomas Frank here, I'm sorry, that's just completely wrong, because Tottenham will always be bigger and more important than any individual at the club. And when I say any individual at the club, I'm talking about in particular everyone really, but board, but mainly managers and players. So yeah, absolutely, we want Tottenham to win this game. So yeah, 2-1 Spurs would be my honest prediction. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. 3 p.m. Saturday game. I think we've covered everything from my thoughts, my lineup, what I think Frank will go with, combined 11, my thoughts on Burnley and score prediction for this game, all in under 12 minutes. So thanks for watching. Thank you for the continued support. Really keen to hear from you in the comments below. Yeah, if you want to get in touch away from this video, maybe drop me an email, scarfharry323@gmail.com. If it's about this video, you can still drop me an email or just get involved in the YouTube comments. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. If neither of those contact forms work for you, drop me a message, drop me a DM, or tag me at Harry Scarfe 22 across social media. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, and come on, you Spurs.